Let's start building our own nonprofit CRM. The first thing we need to do is to build the database. And it's not as complicated as it sounds. Some people will refer to this as the schema. Sometimes people will say the data model or the entity relationship diagram, ERD. So this is what we're going to do now. To build the database or to set up the schema, we need to answer the question, what data do we want to log and track? What type of data do we have? The answer to each data is a table. And the table is sometimes referred to as an object. I'm going to use the term table. So we need to know what tables do we need to have. And for every data, we're going to have a table. Most likely for every table, for every piece of data, we're going to have a table for it. Now, if we talk about our nonprofit, we're going to say things like, for our constituents, like we track and we log constituent data. We log their donations. We log and track the relationships between constituents and each other. We log and track the relationships between constituents and organizations where they work or volunteer. Now, every keyword from what I just said would represent a table. Let's start with the constituent. The constituents could be individuals or could be organizations. So we're going to have, since we're going to have a relationship between an individual and organization, we're going to have two separate tables. One table for individuals and then another table for organizations. Let's start with just like putting any table in there. I'm going to use the entity relationship chart or diagram, this one here. It's helpful because it allows me to enter two types of information. I'm going to explain this in a second. But let's say that this is our first table. And I'll just give it the name person. You could name it contact. You could name it individual. It's up to you. And then we also agreed that we're going to have another one for the organization. Now, you could call this entity. You could call it organization. I want to name it entity because it could be of two types. It could be a household or it could be an organization. So I want to give it just like a generic name for entity, but it's up to you. If you want to name it organization, you can do that. Now, let's start adding attributes. Now, you notice this is it's like a table and we have rows. This here does not represent the list of persons that we will have, but this is saying for each person, what key information do we want to collect about this person. Right? And some information we'll need to collect about the person are the name, the email, the phone number, and I will add a few more information. All right, so this is all the information that we need about a person. Now, what's this second column for? This is where we specify the data type. This is where we specify the data type. And the data type could be a text, could be a number, could be a currency, could be an email, could be a phone number. This is simply saying that this field or input has to follow a certain format. So if you say this is a number, you can't put a text in there. If you say this is an email, you have to format it in an email format. Otherwise, it will not accept it. So this is a way to enforce data. So the name is going to be a text. The email is going to be of email format. The phone number is going to be of phone number format. There is actually a data type phone number. The text is going to be, the street is going to be a text. And then every other address part is going to be a text as well. Now that we have the person table, now let's do the same thing for the entity, which is the organization. We're going to have a name. And that's also, let's just add the attributes or the fields or the inputs, and then we can specify the data types after. We also want to say that this is going to be either an organization or a household. So organization or household. I'm going to specify the data type in a second. And then we're going to need like a phone and an email as well. Like now this is the organization's phone, the organization's email, and then the address as well. I'm just going to copy these with their data types. Now, the name, we said the name is going to be also a text field. The type here is going to be a pick list, right? In a pick list or a select or a drop down. Some schema builders or some database builders out there, some are going to say pick list, some are going to say select, some are going to say drop down. You get the idea, like anything that allows us to have multiple values from which we select one, right? So I'm going to just use pick list for now. And then in this pick list, we have these two values, either organization or household. For the phone number, that's going to be, again, the data type phone number. And this is going to be the data type of an email. Now that we have two tables, we have a table for person and a table for entity. Now let's create a third table. That's the donation. Let's leave these two like this for now for a second. And now let's do a third table, and that's going to be the donation table. Now, what information do we need to have on the donation? In a database, every table is going to need a name record, right? Sometimes it's meaningful, like a person does have a name, but sometimes it's not exactly meaningful, like a donation does not exactly have a name. But the name serves as a way to see the donation in a list, for example. It's going to list the list of donations, so it has to have something. So it does have a name. And usually in these cases, we just give the name of the donation something that is derived from all of the other information. Like a donation would have an amount and would have a donor information. So we're going to put like the donor name and then a space and then the donation amount and maybe like the donation date. So that's the name of the donation. So the name is just a text field. And then what other information do we need to collect on the donation? We're going to need the amount. We're going to need the date of the donation, the status of the donation, and then if it is restricted or not, restriction. And then let's have who is the donor. Let's delete this. Let's say that this is all the information that we need about the donation. Let's start setting the data types. The amount is a currency data type. Now, we do have a currency data type and we also have a number data type. The difference between the two is that when we set it as a currency and then later on we implement something like a currency conversion, where somebody is using a USD on their profile settings and another person is using a different currency, then it automatically converts because the system, it's either automatically converts in some systems or we use some other tools to convert it. And in order for the system to realize that this is a currency that we need to convert to another currency, we have to use a data type of currency. A number is not treated this way. A number is just going to display the same thing if you select a different currency. So amount is a currency, date is of data type date, and started like one of the things that data types are helpful for is that when you specify date, systems will realize that this is a date and they're going to open up this date picker where you actually select the date instead of having to type it down. So you start to see why data types are helpful in databases. The status, this is going to be also a pick list, and the values that we're going to have here are pending and let's say paid. You can add as many values as you want. Restriction, this is also going to be a pick list with restricted or unrestricted. Unrestricted, right? And then the donor, this is an interesting data type now. Now, the donor in a database, you don't want to type the name again. You already created the donor once. You created a person in the database, or you created an entity in the database. So what we want to do now is we want to create a relationship between the person and the donation. And this relationship is going to be one-to-many relationship, meaning one person can have many donations. So one to many. One person can have many donations. So this is a one-to-many relationship. The way this is going to be is, I'm just going to grab this arrow, and just from down here, what's this? Doing it again. From here. Failing. I think I need to click and drag. Okay, I'm clicking and dragging. Like this. And this is the format that I'm gonna just keep using. There are differences, but you don't have to worry about all of this. They mostly mean the same thing with some little differences that we shouldn't have to worry about now. The idea here, you see this line does have three lines at the end. What this means is actually many. So what we're saying here is there is like this side of this end of the arrow, it has only one line, but this one has three lines, meaning we have one person with multiple donations. This is what why this arrow is formatted like this. So we're saying that when we create a donation, we're going to specify who the donor is. When we create a second donation, we get to specify who the donor is. And in those two scenarios, we could specify the same donor twice, right? So at the donation level, we created two rows of records, two donations, in which we said it's the same donor in both of them, and we got to select the same donor just fine twice. However, when we selected the donor, we only selected the same person record in the database. So we don't have to repeat the person again and again. It's just one person, and then we are selecting the same person multiple times at the donation level. So this is the concept of a relationship, and we're gonna be repeating this concept again and again now. Now let's start creating two more tables. The other two data sets we need are one, the relationship between one person and another, and the other is the relationship between an organization and a person. Let's start with the latter. Let's start with the relationship between a person and an organization. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to create actually another table. Let's create another table here, and we'll say this is an affiliation. I'm going to name it an affiliation. This is similar to the way Salesforce, a CRM provider out there, named this table as well. They named the affiliation, so I'm going to use the same term, which means this person is affiliated with this organization. And then we're going to have like the role in the organization, or the like what this person is doing in that organization. Let's start adding these. I'm going to explain why this is like a standalone table in a second. Again, every table needs to have a name. Then we're going to have information like the first is who is the person, who is the person. I actually forgot to set the like an important piece of information here, the data type of this donor. So this is a relationship, right? A relationship. And relationships do have types. So some people will say a lookup relationship, because from the donation you are looking up to the person. But we're just going to say this is a relationship record. And sometimes you'll see it's a link, like some databases will say link to another record. So it's a relationship or a link to which other table? To the person table. So this is the data type for the donor here. Going back to the affiliation, let's start adding these attributes. The first thing is who is the person? And this is going to be another relationship. So relationship to the person as well. So I'm going to repeat the same relationship. We're saying one person can have multiple affiliations. And then the other thing is going to be the entity. And this is also another relationship, but this time it's looking up to the entity. So I'm going to do the same thing again, but this time for the entity. And then we need two more pieces of information. These are the status and the role. What the status means that let's actually add the values, and then it's going to make more sense. Current or former, and then the role is let's say volunteer, maybe like CEO. Let's just say that this is all the information that we need. And I believe this got shifted a little bit. I'm just going to move it back. Now, what we're saying here is this person has an affiliation with this organization. That phrase that I just said, this person, how do I know that it's this person? By setting this field. So this person has an affiliation by creating a record here with this entity. How do I know it's the entity? By creating this input field. And then, are they currently working in that organization? Yes or no? Or are they currently affiliated? You could set status like current or former. And then what's their role in that entity? Are they volunteering there? Are they the CEO of that organization? You could add any additional roles or values in here. Now, why did we want to have like a standalone affiliation or a standalone record instead of putting this information on the person table or on the entity table? The reason is one person can have multiple affiliations with multiple different organizations. So one person might be volunteering in one entity and then actually an employee in another entity, and maybe the just volunteer in another entity. So they might have multiple relationships to the same entity, to multiple entities, forgive me. And then if we actually flip it, like explain it the other way from an entity perspective, in one entity, multiple people might be affiliated with one entity. So in this entity, you might have one person who is a volunteer and another person who is an employee and a third person who is like visits or does the quality control or quality assurance, or and they visit the site or whatever reason. So multiple people might be associated or affiliated with this entity. For these reasons, like one person might have multiple affiliations to an entity, and one entity might have multiple affiliations with people. And for that reason, we need to have a standalone table in which we create as many affiliations as needed without having to create multiple entities or multiple persons. For this, like the same person, we don't want to repeat the same person. If a person is working in two places, I don't want to create the person twice, in which we say in this first person he's creating there, and then in this other person he's creating in that other place. And instead, we create only one person, and then we create two affiliations for that one person. Now that we have the affiliation in place, let's go ahead and create the last table, and this is going to be the relationship table. And that's the relationship between individuals. I'm just going to move this a little bit. Yeah. The last thing is the relationship table. And this is a relationship between one individual and another individual. So again, every table needs to have a name. This is the person, and then here the related person, this is the second person now. So this is also going to look up to the person. So you see, person is a relationship to the person. The related person is also a relationship to the person. Is it a current relationship or a former relationship? And the role, this time, let's not say role, but let's say a relationship. Now, what type of relationship do these two have? Or in other words, what's the relationship between this person and the related person? It could be parent, you could say child, you could say guardian, whatever. Now, since this is a relationship and this is another relationship, we need to create those arrows. Right? So I'm going to drag this down here. And let's start creating those. So this is the first relationship. Actually move these two. And so just organizing stuff. So here. So the first relationship, select the person. The second relationship, select the other person, and then specify if this is a current relationship or a former relationship, like, you know, like a couple and no longer a couple or something like that. You could even use things like employer and employee here potentially, but like if you want to specify like who like if one person is working for another person, you could do something like this, but I prefer to use the relationship to set the actual relationship, like in a family or a friendship or a household relations, and then the type of relationship here at the end. So this means like this is pretty much everything. This is everything we need for our database. You could add whatever information. You know what the table is, you know what the relationship is. Using this, you can add as many tables as you need and as many relationships as you need. Next, we're going to take this in a future video, we're going to take this and build it in an actual database. This is all for now. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.